Sound check.
Video check. And we're live.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of the Y&J Show. I'm your host Y, Yahya Tles, and J for John Warra. And today we have Dr. Jad Dergham. Dr. Jad is a family medicine doctor.
Yes.
He studied in the States.
Yes.
And he's also a hypnotherapist.
Yes, مزبوط. Hello. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
We're very glad to have you.
Honor's ours. How are you? Hey.
We have a lot to talk about.
Okay.
Yani, I don't know where to start.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey? How you came back to Lebanon?
How I came back to Lebanon. يعني the States was never my final destination. Definitely the program that I was in helped me travel all around the world. The Caribbean, Miami, New York, England. And I think when I was done, when I graduated بالأخير from New York, it was easy for my family to convince me to come back. And I ended up, coming back. قدمت على AUB, family medicine. This is where I started noticing, there's something missing. I started, going for I started going for the alternative, medicine approach.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you started in the U.S. So you went to medical school in the U.S., right?
In the U.S., yeah.
So you did your undergrad here or there?
I did my undergrad at University of North Carolina.
Oh,
so
okay.
UNC, yeah.
Okay, nice.
وبعدين رحت على medical school.
North Carolina, رايقة المنطقة.
Super.
It's very calm.
Very رواق, كتير quaint. ما بيصير شيء. Like nothing ever happens over there. كتير رواق حلوة المنطقة.
بس رجعت على لبنان حسيت انه كتير اختلف الجو عنك؟
ما كان عندي وقت لحتى أفكر بهالموضوع. I came back. أختي وخيي كنت صار 9 سنين غايب. So getting busy with the family again, applying to AUB. At the time I was learning how to train dogs actually. I became like a dog trainer كمان. I got my dog and then residency started. So I didn't feel like there was much change. I was busy there. I was busy here. It was good to be back home actually, yeah.
What, off topic, but what breed of dog you get?
Akitas.
What?
Akita.
Oh,
Akita.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hello.
And I got, what training that I had was specific to the Akita because they're a very stubborn type of dog. They're independent and it translates to humans as stubbornness.
Stubbornness, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there was something missing. Could you elaborate a bit more on that? About medicine and something missing about it?
Sure. So, Western medicine obviously has taken us so far.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of cases it's very helpful, but what you notice on a connection level with a patient most times, they don't usually leave fulfilled. When they come back, they're not always better. Their well-being is not complete. Their LDL levels are fine and their CBC is back to normal. But they're not happy. There's something missing. And I think they come to the doctor trying to find the reason for it, trying to find an understanding of their pains, of their anxieties, and they're not really getting it. You say, oh, you have anxiety, but your TSH is normal. Okay. So, why? So I always felt like في شيء ناقص the approach that we have with patients. And I guess in the States, كنت لحالي, there was lots of, first-time experiences for me. They affected me in a certain way, and I became a hypnotherapy client. So I was a patient, and this is how I got introduced to hypnotherapy. And I noticed how much it changed me, changed my life, my perspective, and I thought I would bring that into my practice.
But I have a question. Usually, I think if someone has, let's say, نفسيته تعبانة or they don't feel right, I've never heard of anyone go to a hypnotherapist. Maybe because it's not very well known in Lebanon, but as well out there, usually people will go for more traditional, maybe a psychologist, a therapist, clinical psychologist. هدول القصص.
So hypnosis was basically banned from the medical field for a long time. But it's back into the game, and it's still controversial. It's still a controversial topic, but it is still based on science. It is science.
Yeah.
And nobody really hears much of it because it's one of those, is it spiritual? Is it religious? Does it have to do with the soul? Does it not? I think it's hocus pocus. It's still one of those, treatments that people are not very sure about. TV doesn't help. Movies don't help.
Okay.
Was it practiced by Freud?
It was, yes, it was.
So it was part of the psychoanalytical school.
Yes, which is currently, like psychoanalysis is not currently a mainstay in therapy at all. You're not
No,
supposed
In
to-
Lebanon it is.
It is, no, it depends.
There are two schools in Lebanon. So you have the American school
Mhm.
and you have an Eastern school. So بالجامعة اللبنانية مثلا
And USG.
they study psychoanalysis
Okay.
and they learn how to perform psychoanalysis.
Okay.
Now, has it been useful? It's usually psychoanalysis from what I've seen, like the courses I took at the UB. Most courses, because, which I agree with, that they're like psychology is a science. So you base your findings on research, on concrete evidence. كيف في evidence-based medicine, so evidence-based psychology. I think that psychoanalysis was actually useful in cases of trauma and PTSD. This is where it was actually fruitful, and you would see results with clients.
And also throughout history, when there was this group of people who wanted to turn psychology into something like biology and use statistics and data and all of this, so they drifted a little bit from the philosophical aspect, the more spiritual aspect. Which is not necessarily a good thing. I think there is a place for both.
Yes.
And a lot of people, they say that psychoanalysis has given them things that psychology couldn't give.
Absolutely. It definitely was a building block in the complete knowledge of what's currently, we're still building the knowledge of how to analyze somebody's consciousness, but to me, when we start talking about hypnosis and hypnotherapy, our point is to let go of this conscious logical mind and delve into this mysterious unconscious or subconscious mind. So the more we talk about logic and statistics, the further away we are from the actual topic. So it's, hypnotherapy is calming down the logic and tapping into the unconscious, the subconscious, which to us shouldn't be logical. This is the whole point of it. Yeah.
أنا وجاد حكينا بشغلة على فكرة earlier that I thought we should talk about on the podcast, which is pleasure and happiness.
Ah, nice. Yeah.
And I think
حلوة هيدا.
you mentioned something that people always come to doctors searching for these answers.
Great.
And one of those main questions they have usually is they want this fulfillment or to reach that state of happiness, which always...
They confuse, well, especially in today's society, which is a very, they want answers right now. It's a very, هلا بدي المعلومات. I want the likes right now. You post a picture, it's very, so very هيك quick answers بدهم. It's long-term gratification, not short-term. This is what we need to be practicing. So pleasure versus happiness. Definitely pleasures are, they're good when they come in small doses as dopamine rushes for our achievements. So when we achieve something, we get a nice dopamine rush, and this is good because it's a reward system in our brain that is useful to us. But صار في an induced form of pleasures. So عندك, drugs, you have lots of drugs in the market, and they all induce dopamine in the reward system, and people start confusing this sensation with what happiness is. And it's all fine and dandy when you're taking the drug and you're fully aware of that this is not happiness. This is a conscious choice that I've made to take for this night, and then you put that aside and you don't continue to pursue it as your journey towards happiness. But when you start confusing it with what happiness is, this is where problems start coming in. You start getting tolerance and addictions and misery that is confusing because you think you're happy and then you're not. So it's a very polarized.
And people start looking for pleasure as a way to grant them this
Yes.
happiness.
Me.
But it doesn't actually give
And then we spoke about this today. That's right. The more
Yeah,
pleasure you
about-
seek, the less happy you become.
Which one basically gives you that dopamine rush?
So the dopamine, so drugs usually when we say like, oh, he's going to go dope or this is so dope. So the word dope comes from dopamine. And so the dopamine rush is your pleasure system. And we know that serotonin is our happy hormone. So SSRIs and SNRIs, they work on the serotonin reuptake. So serotonin is our happy hormone. And this is where biologically we can explain the wise sentence that says, you know, the more pleasure you seek, the less happy you become.
And you build a certain tolerance on
You build it,
dopamine.
yes. So the biological, you know, facts behind it is that when you get a surge of dopamine, the only thing that basically happens is the dopamine receptors become less because neurons die when you have so much dopamine being released. So to protect itself, the brain decreases the dopamine receptors, and therefore to get to that same high that you did before, you're not going to get there. So you need to increase your second dose. And this is where you start going more and more drugs and the higher dosage to get that first high. They call it chasing the white horse or chasing the white dragon, Oshihek. And you'll never get there. And then the other thing that happens when you get this dopamine rush is that your serotonin receptors also die. And this is very interesting. And the more dopamine that gets released, the less serotonin you have. And so this is where the fact comes in. And the more pleasure we seek, the less happy we become. And it's very difficult to stop this. And when you stop, let's say you make the decision to stop the addiction and your dopamine is not there, your serotonin is also not there. So you're in a state of severe down with no signs on the horizon of this happiness being there. And it's just a matter of, I guess, persistence and faith and a little, you know, determination. It does come back. It just takes a long time and it's a very, very difficult period in people's lives. But it does come back.
I also really liked when we talked about responsibility and accountability, taking responsibility and accountability to your decisions and actions in life.
Yes.
Like, no one's perfect.
Right.
You can do a lot of things. You can eat chocolate and sugar, and you can smoke. But the fact is, you should be responsible for these decisions, not blame people أو give excuses.
مزبوط.
لا خلص أنا بدي أعمل هيدا الشيء بتحمل مسؤوليته.
مزبوط.
Whatever happens.
ده فوت بالحيط فات بالحيط خلص.
100%. A lot of the times أنه بكون قاعد بالمكتب with a client, with a patient, and I'd be giving advice about, you know, smoking or about how bad sugar can be. And then, you know, I'd walk downstairs with them and I'd light a cigarette. I smoke maybe 3-4 cigarettes a day. Sometimes I don't smoke at all. It's a very calm relationship I have with smoking. But they see me downstairs and they say, "Oh, you know, you're a hypocrite." You know, and in a sense, they're right. I do understand why they would say this, but they say this to make their guilt about smoking get less, and that's not what it should be. أول شيء. تاني شغلة, I give correct facts about what smoking is, and my first sentence is with everybody is that you smoke because you choose to smoke. I don't like to hear a patient or a client say, I smoke because I have stress in my life. My next sentence is usually always, that's the same excuse any drug addict would have or any heroin abuser would use. Because I have stress in my life, I do this. And so your excuse is the same as his. Do you accept his? And they say, no. I say, no, I don't do. I'm like, but that's the same excuse. So you can use it for anything. And I say, it's your body and it's your choice. So if you choose to smoke, I respect it, but don't blame it on the stress. And so I choose to smoke because I enjoy it. And so I don't blame it on anything. And it's again with almost everything that we do, and just take responsibility for the choices that we make. Don't blame it on anything, because in that way you are insulting yourself. You're removing the knowledge of knowing that you can change who you are and change your habits by saying, oh, it's not in my hands. But it is. We have the power to change so much, and we forget that. Yeah.
That's true. I have a question about to go more into your field of specialty about hypnosis.
Hypnosis.
Yeah.
Is it hypnosis or hypnotherapy?
It's the same thing. So
It's the
I'm a
same.
hypnotist or
Hypnotherapist.
Yeah,
Okay.
hypnotherapist.
So I remember actually quite a few years back, before I even went into medicine, I was maybe still a pre-med.
Okay.
So more than 5-6 years ago. I remember
Trying to hypnotize girls to like him.
Never. I don't need to do anything for that. Either way. So basically, I remember that my mom being an anesthesiologist.
Okay.
So usually, you know what, like an anesthesiologist just goes and like.
That's great. Anesthesiologists have very good hypnotherapy, like in a tube, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hypnosis in a tube.
So I remember her talking about someone who came and did a special type of, started a special type of anesthesia, which does not involve an IV, which is basically just talking to a patient, getting him in this trance and hypnotizing them while someone else is working on their hand, like an open wound on their hand.
Me.
And
I've heard about this case. I think it happened in New York as well.
yeah, I think so. But either the
Dentistry.
the
a lot.
person, yeah, and the person who did that actually came and gave a seminar in a hospital in Lebanon, in CMC, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But that's quite a few years back. So I wanted to ask you: is like hypnotherapy and hypnosis that developed and that powerful, and how can this happen? Because I've heard a lot of times like, كمان you can't hypnotize someone إذا هن مركزين معك وما بدهم, like they have this thought that no.
So take us through the process.
Pretty much.
Okay. So hypnosis is a changed state of consciousness where you are very focused, but at the same time you're extremely relaxed.
Susceptible to suggestion.
Susceptible to suggestions. The focus part is the part that is connected to your subconscious mind, and the relaxed part is the logical and analytical mind, which is your conscious mind. The whole point of it is decreasing your barriers, to letting go of your barriers, and you would like to know how much hypnosis. You said hypnosis has gone so far. هذه الجملة علقت شوي معي.
Yeah.
It's
More like-
all hypnosis. The sentence is really important because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I cannot hypnotize you. You need to accept being hypnotized. So you need to hypnotize yourself. So I cannot make you breathe and relax through your breath. You have to breathe like me. So I can show you the way, but you need to do it. So all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, which kind of is cool because as a hypnotherapist, you can never go wrong. So because the patient will accept the suggestions if they want to. I cannot the patient cannot accept anything or do anything without them actually accepting it and doing it themselves. And as he said, it's a state of accepting suggestions. So the word is very important. They're just suggestions. It's up to you to accept them.
Do patients remember after they are hypnotized?
If they choose not to remember, they won't.
Oh.
So again, it's up to them.
Do they make this decision before they're hypnotized or after?
There are levels of hypnosis. The last 3, so there are 6. So the final 3 are amnesic. So sometimes you don't remember everything. You can. It's a choice that the patient makes.
So it also opens the realm of the subconscious. So does it really help you recall certain memories that...
Absolutely. The subconscious mind is responsible for 4 main things. It's responsible for long-term memory, your behaviors. It's responsible for your self-preservation, كيف تهتم بحالك, and emotions. Those 4 things lead your daily life, from stopping at a stoplight to blowing on, like your coffee while it's hot, to your very repetitive, could be good habits or bad habits. It's the things that you do on a daily basis without thinking. These are automatic. And this is what hypnotherapy allows you to tap into. So long-term memory, can you remember? Yeah. I remember I had memories when I was like 2 years old. and
Wow.
very clear ones. And I went and asked my uncle about them. He's like, "How do you know? You were a baby." I remembered them very clearly during my
After
test session. Yeah.
hypnotherapy.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a really cool experience because when you're in it, it's very natural. It's not something spiritual. It's just you.
Also, patients who had who were abused or had PTSD, they sometimes they can't remember. They reach a point where they have this, which is a defense mechanism
Right.
that your brain does.
Correct.
The repression,
Yep.
Hypnotherapy helps them recall these memories.
Blocked traumas, yes.
Mm.
Me. So our brain protected us by blocking them. And once you're ready to heal, which is why a patient would come to a hypnotherapist, they're ready to let go of it. The brain will allow the behavior or the memory to come back up to the surface, and we can only deal with things that come up to the surface. We won't get memories that we can't deal with.
Yeah.
And our bodies will and our minds will allow us to get over it in its own way. And again, it's up to the client, it's up to the patient to let go of this memory or to heal from it. It's never...
And the trust between the therapist and the patient and the client is very important.
There needs to be very, very good connection. Absolutely.
Mhm.
There needs to be trust. Because the whole point of hypnosis and healing is surrendering what you currently know, because it hasn't led you to where you want to be. So it's a state of like also surrender, where you just accept whatever another person is telling you, and you let yourself go, and you just go on this path that is new and, you know, different. And changing environment and changing thought process can be scary, but we always need to remember that change is safe. Yeah.
And other than that,
That's very interesting.
that goes back to the idea that usually when someone has PTSD, when they like the final goal or the end goal of a therapist, usually a psychoanalyst, would be to try to integrate the memory of their trauma in their sense of identity.
Absolutely.
That this actually happened with me, so that they can acknowledge it. So that's very interesting because it's basically conjoining
It's-
both roads.
There's a very, very important, very powerful mechanism in neuro-linguistic in NLP hypnosis, where you do something called parts integration. And it's always starting with a patient of a limiting belief or something that they feel is a negative aspect of who they are, and you don't try to ignore it. You face it, you accept it, you thank it, you learn from it, and you bring it into the whole. So it is who you are, but it's not. It doesn't define you,
Yeah.
and so you can choose not to be, even though it's a part of you. And so many other things are as well. We just choose to focus on a few things at a time, you know? Yeah.
And also, a lot of people, I think, they are afraid a little bit of the concept. They fear first trusting someone.
Right.
So there has to be like a warming up sessions and...
There needs to be, yes. So usually my first session with a client would be somewhere along the lines of, filling out a sheet. Why are you here? What are your biggest problems in your life? Currently, like right now, and what is the intention of your visit? So the intention is extremely important, because hypnosis can only get you to where you want to go, but you need to set your destination. So I need to know what you want.
And they're the most vulnerable people who come, who seek.
They are the ones with the most barriers that are ready to fall. Absolutely. They want these walls to fall, but these walls are there. They don't know how to let go of them. They're scared to change. It's like a mouse that's hiding behind a wall. في شي ورا. ما في شي ورا. Like it's safe to come out. You're going to be okay. It's a difficult process, but as soon as a patient, even during the first session, as soon as they notice that they walk out with a different energy and a different light and a recognition of their own ability of who they are and what they can do, it's really amazing to see. I was so nervous the first time I did a session on somebody. I usually get very anxious. I get very nervous. I'm very good at hiding that and pretending as if, But when I saw it, أول مرة, I'm like, this actually really works. I remember feeling the way he did. And it was really amazing to see how much hypnotherapy can bring a patient back into his own light. Yani. It's very nice.
And it's very important for the therapist actually any medical practitioner, there's a lot of responsibility. Like in Lebanon, sometimes ما بيكون في كتير رقابة على certain, and we hear a lot regarding psychiatrists to practice the roles of clinical psychologists and all of that. So it's, I believe, people who are in the medical field, and especially who are in therapy, they have so much responsibility to stay ethical, to stay unbiased.
Right.
And there's a certain barrier between between the patient and the therapist that shouldn't be crossed.
مظبوط. You've got
And it's also difficult لأنه sometimes you feel so a lot of empathy towards that vulnerable patient. Like you want to go
we spoke about
above
this.
and beyond. And
We spoke about this. That's very true. A lot of people tell me that I get too involved, and they fear that I get emotionally drained or too energetically charged from what's going on. And I never understood what the problem with that was to begin with. If I go back home and I'm feeling good about the work that I've done, why would this be a problem? I do believe medical is personal. I don't think that when you're taking care of somebody's health, it cannot be personal. It is personal. It's medical, but to me, it's got to be a little bit more than this. I don't think that people that go into hypnotherapy have bad intentions towards others to begin with. It's a lot of work and a lot of studying and a lot of self-reflection. And what you end up noticing is that it's not the doctors that are there just for the money. They'll go into hypnotherapy. It's somebody that's been traumatized or hurt, who has gone through the process of hypnosis, that wants to share it. It wants to share how much it can help and how much good it can do. And yes, hypnosis can be used in a bad way. But again, you can always blame the patient for it, because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So the patient accepted to do what they did, and it's all part of like a, you know, so
like كأنه في implicit consent form بيكون البيشنت حاططها.
absolutely, absolutely. But no, for me, it's I get most of the patients that I see on the first session, I don't usually see them on the second session. يعني, it's very clear to a hypnotherapist if a client is a good hypnotherapy client or not. And from the first session, you know, you can tell, should we continue with him, should we not? And most of the patients I have to reject, because they're not really there for healing. They're there to get something out of the session that is not ecological. It's not something that is good for everybody's, you know, benefit. Sometimes a mother would come and say, can you change my son in this way? Can you change his sexuality? And I'm like, no, not me. That's not how it works. Absolutely not. And they truly believe in it. This is how it works. Like it's magic, and it's not.
It doesn't work
It
that
does
way.
not. No, not at all.
Yeah.
I really respect these fields لأنه they يعني بتحس الثيرابيست عم يعطي من نفسه من قلبه. We also spoke about certain types of people. I think there's a scale that you told me about, and your favorite guy is Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, yes. 100%.
So Jad, أنت بنظرك Elon Musk is doing good for humanity?
Yes. So مني تفاصيل كتير مني مذكر, بس I do know that there are 7 different levels of ethical, 7 different ethical levels, value level systems basically. نحن, let's say you're a student and you're trying to get somewhere, you're value level 3, hopeful 5. 5 is like your institutions, your successful institutions like Starbucks and Google and your really big ones. Even if you're a doctor and you've got your own clinic and you've made it, this is a value level 5. You're doing it for yourself, for your community, you're well. Level 6 is where you let go of all materialistic things and you go out into the world and say, oh, I want to be a monk. And you donate all your money and everything to, somebody else. That's not the best thing that you can do, because you haven't integrated what you've done with the wisdom that you're currently achieving. It's a bit
that wasn't my reaction.
It's selfish. It's a bit wasteful.
Yeah.
Because 7 is where you integrate the money with the wisdom, and this is where somebody like Elon Musk comes in, where he is doing something for the benefit of all of mankind, where his goal is not his profit or his survival. It's it's something that is for humanity itself.
And throughout history, we can
There are specific people that are there. Very rare do you get somebody that value level 7
Einstein or people who
كمان.
contributed.
100% absolutely yes. حلوين كتير هود these value level, because then you start thinking, who do I know that's value level 7? And it's usually usually nobody. And then you say, he's 3 or he's 4. Allah, I think I want to be 6. And then you start noticing, I wanted to go to Tibet. And you're like, wait, no, I don't want to go to Tibet.
You don't want to, no.
I don't want to go to Tibet anymore. Yeah. كتير حلوين هود lessons that we learn. Yeah.
And let's go to your اللي صار يعني من وقت ما كنت بأمريكا لهلا رجعت, since we talked about pretty much everything.
Okay.
So basically, how would you describe هلا كيف قاعدين؟
الوضع اللي احنا فيه, especially after the quake. هلا I'm the type of person that if something passed, I don't usually look back and talk about it anymore. I used to be that person that was always the victim of my past and always blaming my past for, and then I was woken up, we spoke about this, a friend of mine actually came to me and told me, he's like, you victimize yourself. And I got so angry. I'm like, why would you say that to me? And like, I am a victim of my past. And I was about to stand up and like get really angry with him. And I remembered reading something. If somebody tells you something and you get really negatively charged from it, it's most likely because it's true. And so I'm like, okay, I'll take that as a fact. And it was a split second in my head. I'm like, he is right. I am. And I stood up and I'm like, thank you so much. You're correct. And since that day, I noticed that, no, I'm not going to be talking about the past anymore. If something has passed,
It's fine.
if something has passed, I will no longer talk about it. It doesn't determine my day right now. But اليوم بلبنان عندك الوضع like the economical situation is unstable, the political system is unstable, and then the earth shakes underneath you. And so كل هود القصص على بعضهم, you add the quake to it, people will start getting very, very scared and very anxious, and they will start catastrophizing and dramatizing the quake situation. ما صار شيء. الحمد لله. If it was any other day, as البلد كان بخير, nobody would have even mentioned it, They would have said, that was fun. And that was it. بس بعدهم لهلا العالم بيجوا لعندي الحمد لله على السلامة. I'm like, what happened?
عاشو.
what happened? The blast was a disaster.
Yeah.
أكيد.
The blast was a big one.
Of course, that we can't deny it.
Yeah.
And
هلا ما بدنا نختم أنا سعد.
of course not.
I can.
جاد إذا بدك تفرجينا اللوحة تاعتك.
Okay.
So Dr. Jad is also an artist. And
recently discovered.
A really good artist.
Where do I
Just
point?
one thing.
This cam.
انت ملاحظ قد ايه وقت نجيب جاز بيكون حدا بيغني حدا بيرسم انا وياك صفر ماشي.
أنا كنا
So
فاكرين
far, you don't know. And I discovered I can paint 2 years ago.
I'm pretty sure I can
I had
do
no
that.
idea. Well, maybe there's something else we're doing.
So
where do I
this
put
This is
it?
your camera.
So this is a painting that I was asked to paint by my stepmom, and it is I call it Pocahontas in New York, because it looks like she's in the wind, and I remember that song, the Colors of the Wind with Pocahontas. So yeah. Okay.
And a lot of his paintings have a lot of meaning and deepness to them, and they're personal.
Are you hypnotized when you paint?
Usually, yes. Lots of the time, we actually go into a state of hypnosis without realizing.
That's called weed.
That's it's called. It's definitely la. You can't go into that state like the alpha state in that way at all. You need to be really going deep into yourself. Those things, even though like me and my brother always have this conversation, it's not hypnosis. It's what do you call it? No. It's blankness, really. It's just floating. I remember my hypnotherapist never allowed a patient to say, you're high, or you got high. You got low. So we compare like good times with, with being high, but we're actually not in a higher state of consciousness. We're in actually a much lower state of consciousness. Wow. So the words that we use on a daily basis have encouraged their use. And again, I say these things not attacking, but just understanding that if you so choose to do it, don't fool yourselves into believing you're in a higher state. Do it, enjoy it, but go back to your daily life, go back to you, go back to your achievements, to your goals, and always remember there's another way. Yep.
Okay. So that's a great note, I think, to end on,
Oh, cool.
to be honest.
Okay.
And I think so moral of everything we talked about, one of the things that really stuck with me is that own up to your actions, take responsibility for them.
Absolutely.
Definitely never throw the blame on someone else. If for your behavior you are doing لا مش الوضع بيخليني أنا أدخن لا, you're doing this to yourself.
Yeah, and it's not about blame either. It's about understanding that you are powerful to change to this, and you're powerful enough to change back, or to, if you so choose to again. So if you so choose to stay in that state, there's no right and wrong. It's just you have the power to change, and don't remove that power from you.
Yeah, and this is super important for everyone who's maybe our age and in the society who's still young and maybe struggling on a daily basis. It's important to keep that in mind, that your actions can define who you are later, and they can help you change the situation you are in around you. So
They can define your current moment, and so the next moment itself is completely open to you again.
100%.
So it just defines your current state
so
right now. Yes,
basically, so that you guys won't feel in a state of learned helplessness. إنه ما في شيء تعملوه خلاص هذا هو الوضع.
Absolutely.
So okay,
We are all infinite beings.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
really
you for having me.
everything.
Honestly, this was great.
It was a blast having you. It was great.
Thank you so
And
much.
Thank you for all of you, the viewers.
And we'll see you next time.
Catch you next time.